Riktig. Det er ikke du som skal prate først. Jo. Hvilken vil du da?
Det starter med I.
I?
Den der.
Den?
Ja.
Ok, veldig bra. Okay, now we're ready.
Right. Yeah. Can everybody see it? I assume yes. Okay. So yeah, again, thanks for having us. Very excited to start off the project in the Skien. And so today we wanted to share 3 projects that are ongoing. Short introductions of ourselves. We are the architects at Kengo Kuma and Associates. My name is Yuki Ikeguchi. I'm a partner in charge of the new projects, and as well as 2 other projects that I'm presenting today. And Mark is our colleague and teammate. He'll be jointly making this presentation with me. Mark, do you want to say a word?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Mark Mkarze. I'm the Chief Project Manager at Kengo Kuma and Associates, and I had the chance to work with Yuki on 2 of these projects. So the one in the middle and the one on the right we see here. So Papiro in Copenhagen and Ibsen Library in Skien.
All right. So the first page, this is to have a outline or introduction of what we aim or strive to achieve in designing of the architecture. And these 3 projects that we're going to talk about today is in particular very much in this theme, the central theme around and designing the spaces. First one is the biophilic architecture. As our architecture at the Kengo Kuma and Associates, I believe, known for. We do utilize a lot of materials such as wood, stone, and something of the nature, the natural elements. And on the top of that, then we get to work with the organic elements such as trees, the greens, vegetations for Hans Christian Andersen Museum, water in the fullest extent for the water culture house. So we are playing with the true organic elements in these 2 architecture. What it means, the biophilic architecture is not just utilizing the architectural natural materials, but to really incorporate the landscapes, the gardens, water, and all these organic elements into the space. This is appeal to, of course, our senses and our nature or tendency to find comforts, inspirations, and source of creation when we are in the natural setting and also being surrounded by warm textures of wood and so on. So in these 3 projects, and we are fully exploring the potential of achieving the biophilic architecture. That's the first one. And the second is life between buildings, of course. It's inspired by the Danish concept of designing in the urban settings. But this is becoming more and more important nowadays, especially I believe in this Ibsen library, as well as 2 other projects that we're designing in Denmark. When we design the project, the architecture, and place and such a presence in the city, it's not only that we are offering the space quality inside, but by implementing the new architecture, there will be this space, the open space that are altered and newly created in between the adjacent building and surroundings, the neighbors and natural settings. So this is something that we have been paying very keen attention of to how to create the life between buildings. How do we activate the public scenes that are good for the users and community, for the visitors? So that's the second theme that are present in 3 projects, as well as for all our projects that we are tackling. The last one is this design method, rather, that we've been implementing, this micro-macro design simultaneous approach. So what it is that we pay keen attention of the architecture design, but in such a way that it creates a firm link between the surrounding nature or the city and the life that surrounds the project site. So that's the urban scale, the larger scale that we would always try to achieve the firm link to and relationship to. At the same time, we initiate the explorations of the texture of materials and how it's applied in a very tactile manner. So this very tangible human scale is explored at the same time as the concept of linking to the city and environment. Okay, so the first project that I would like to present is the new Hans Christian Andersen Museum. So this is under construction as we speak, and our colleague Nicola has been sticking to the site every day and following through to this very challenging time. We've been working with and for the museum crew, which is really inspiring. The museum crew, especially Henrik and Jambo, they have been really a true source of inspirations in such a way that the high appreciations for architecture and an understanding. But how this project started, we won the competition in 2016. And it was quite a unique approach of having the competition to create the contents, exhibition design first. So they had that competition as a base for architectural proposal to come into place. So that's something very particular in this project, that we design inside out and outside in at the same time, which makes sense. There's a very thick layer of contents considerations that needs to be done, led by Henrik, the curator. And the architectural design needs to be initiated in considerations of this very thick layer of our contents, understanding Andersen, who he is, and his world of fairy tale and writing and so on. So that was a very unique process that we started with. How do we start this literature, the writings and the writer himself, and how do we incorporate this into the world space of architecture? That was extremely challenging, but really interesting way of tackling and designing the architecture. Of course, at the same time, we look at the city context, but the essence of the designing the museum, we started looking into what was put together by a curator, the core concepts or the essence of how the museum should represent. And one of it was this duality, a coexistence of the opposite matters, reality versus fantasy, nature versus the artificial things, animals, humans, and all these opposite matters, the shadows of the, or the lights. This is really in a mirror, back to back, back to front existence, that it always gets blurred in his world, the Andersen world. So this is something that we challenge ourselves to tackle by creating the planning, the space configurations to be able to experience this sequence through. And the ambiguity is another theme that we put ourselves to set the design, initiate it. So in order to do that, then we didn't believe in the central figure, but rather non-hierarchical, non-centric way of designing and planning the architecture. And this is to create the journey in between two walls. And this, in a simple manner, how we came about in the competition proposal, which it's pretty much still intact, the idea of it. So in the geometric form, it's a series of a curved form and tracing the exhibition space planning underneath, where the projection of it in a way that appears above ground. So one plane that a ground floor plane that gets blurred between the real world of above ground and the fantasy world of the underground. So most of the above grounds are created with these hedges and meandering paths where the sort of visitors would fall into and get lost to, but one would have a glimpse of a connection to the fantasy world of underneath the underground world. So this it was really a great opportunity for us to propose with master planning, with the landscape designers in Denmark, our collaborator, to find a way to create the space, but it's very open, like a garden should be. But by creating the hedge, being trimmed and formed into an architectural plan form, this ambiguity of the maze-like space is created as a public open space. Yeah, it was the first opportunity for us to create this architectural space that are based on the planning with the organic elements such as this living green hedges. Yeah, so the intention is to create a ground floor plane as wide as possible, filled with green. And this is the garden that reflects and traces the exhibition space of underground. So the site was very particular. It stands in between two different scales. So seeing on the screen on the left-hand side, it has rather a larger scale, which has been developed in the recent decades. And on the right-hand side, there are a series of small and very human scale residents with the traditional wooden structure. And that includes, of course, the bathhouse of Andersen, which whole museum experience is initiating and ending with. In the view of this, one of the challenges that we have been imposed is how to deal with this, the large boulevard that is for the fast traffic. And this has resulted in separating, rather, a city into two. So our challenge was to extend beyond this the garden and to really occupy with the gardens and world of Andersen that binds these two separated zones into one. And at the end, there are also under development these city plans that runs the light rail, and which we incorporated into like some kind of very interesting urban experience that while you are inside the train, you would run through in between the hedge. So you are already into this world of Andersen, as well as this very unique space that are covered and enclosed with the tall hedges. So there's something particular that is passing through, but in a very quality green areas for public. So this is, we have separated and tackled in 4 different garden zones. First one, we call it as an urban garden, where it's exactly what I was explaining in the earlier slides, that this fast light rail would pass through. And there's 2 stops that is at the beginning, or closer to the beginning of the museum and towards the later parts of the museum. So by cutting through, and one would have a particular experience of being and pass through the world of Andersen. While there's a pedestrian paths and also spill out of a cafe and children's room, which is to creative facilities for the children, and also passing of the bicycle lanes. And this is the overall image. Although this is a slight alterations to our proposal, but we hope that the end result would achieve this the space, the urban space, as we have envisioned. So this view highlights that the overall area, the entire zone, is covered with green. There are small pavilions that pops up and that provides functions such as cafe and studio, and a foyer that needs to be accessible from above ground, and it needs a full of lights and good quality. And so this is one of the urban garden space where the meandering path it plays a part of an experience of walking through the hedges and experience being enclosed and by these hedges, and have a glimpse of the architectural pavilions, which is the first, the biggest one is placed at the prominent corners where most accessible and visible and legible to the public. And this is open for rather educational facilities or creative activities, mostly for children. So that's quite symbolic areas that are adjacent to these trees that are existing at the moment. Cafe close to this path, and the gardens, a garden view could be obtained at the same time, and the entrance pavilions that are open and draw people in through this 2-layer of hedge, like you'll be let the way to the entrance, which is adjacent to the bathhouse of Andersen. So this is the layers of the facade for pavilion. And one is the scenographic, what we call it as a scenographic garden. And this sort of traces the exhibition space underneath. So again, this play of mirroring or the duality of the opposite matter that are cut and divided with the plane of ground. So the above ground, it has a hedge that creates the maze-like space. And through some small openings, the aperture of the skylight, one could have a glimpse of the fairy tale world underneath. And this is sort of effect of the meandering path. The last is the sacred garden, and this is the portal or the openings that connects from above ground with the real world versus the fantasy world, the fairy tale world underneath. And this is the view that we imagine could be obtained in some years later when the trees are fully grown. And so, of course, the landscape and garden projects are always in view of the growth over years and years. So the effect is that there's this sense of being surrounded and intimate, secluded, and the visibility from the above ground world to in is it's a bit more controlled, and this creates a sense of sacred garden that are more to become a background to the fairy tale exhibition areas. Very quickly, how we go about creating the volumetric and planning. And so with the idea of the exhibition designer, who's the event communication from London, they have this idea of suppressing all exhibition space underground, which requires a lot of heavy scenographic settings like lightings and sound and so on. It does make sense to have that in underground, and this concept of this duality to create this world of fairy tale versus the real world. So we definitely need to, or we strive to follow that concept of suppressing or creating the underground world that I immerse, and to remain with the pavilions that has an access, direct access for such as cafe, tinderbox, and the entrance pavilions. What we thought is going to be really exciting is this, take this concept of biographic realm and the fairy tale realm, which was a created concept of a museum and exhibition designer, that the biographic realm is something that the visitors would gradually descend and reach to the underground world, but it's a slow transition from real world to underground world. And this is much about the author's life journey, and you would experience by meandering paths between the exhibition. So for the gardens, it's not just for the purpose of creating this the spatial experience, but also to, in a full intention of offering the public or the communities this quality space so that they can just come, have lunch, or just to have a day to play and so on. So this needs to be the garden that the spontaneous activities could happen, or offer a space, a comfortable space for a daily stop. So this is the current plan that we are building of. So what is particular is that the bathhouse is, of course, it's the beginning and end of the whole journey. And starting with the foyer, receiving the visitors, what's interesting is that one would start with the exhibition space and to visit each one by descending through this meandering ramp. And each one of the exhibition spaces are composed or enclosed in the circular form. So this is the view to the exhibition, the foyer pavilions and inside of the foyer. And this is the full plans that shows how the exhibition spaces are composed of. So the gradual descending through the ramps, the means of ramps, and going into each one of the Biographic Realm exhibition space. Once you land on the bottom of the underground exhibition space, then the world of a fairy tale, it just expands and opens in front of you. We just wanted to share some of the photographs that we thought start to become really interesting. The project is under construction right now, and we can see the series of columns, but the meandering paths, an effect of being in and out of one space and to another. And this topography of how the space gets lower and descending, and to capture this in between the circle, the exhibition spaces are something that are very particular, and we're quite excited about the effect of a walkthrough, this path experience. Yeah, this is from the competition image, and it's not quite the same right now, but just as a shown intent of scenographic space, that they will be merging between the landscape and the element of the architecture will become a filters through it. While also this connection between the backgrounds and below grounds by having these cuts and the insert of lights. One of the particular moment that is this one, the Little Mermaid's moment. While we have the glass surface that runs the shallow water above. So there's this connection between visitors above ground in the garden and the people who are the visitors who are experiencing exhibitions underground. So yeah, both could have this sensation of the emotional of the Little Mermaids. So that's something that we are quite excited about, and now start to see the effects. The facade concept, we have been inspired by these surrounding buildings, the timber buildings that has these diagonals. So we have implemented this concept of looking into the tradition and to morph it in such a way that it gives a more organic feeling to it, and to create the patterns in the form of a facade in architecture. But the diagonal, actually, we get to use this as the bracing to stabilize the whole structure and the facade. So yeah, it's functional as well. And this is the result of applying these design patterns. This I rather go very quickly. So there's some interior space, what we called as the children realm, which name might have been altered by now. But the idea of creating a treehouse-like experience underground, starting with sets of lights and move towards the ground floor, which is very open and welcoming, partly used for gathering space and teaching space and so on. The upper is the creative studio where the creative activities would take place. And this shows the photos of current ongoing construction. Overview to the cafe. And from the cafe, one could obtain this surrounding view towards the urban side, as well as this three-dimensional rising grounds and the meandering paths of the hedges. So the hedge would transform itself through a different season. So in autumn, then it starts to be bare and to change its transparency. There's some play of the scale, the giant plants, and so on. So it also reflects some of the stories of Andersen. Yeah, so that was that. Second project that we would like to present together with Mark is a water culture house. Well, we won the competition and now in process of design development. We work with VLA, this Danish local collaborator, as well as Biographic for facade and potentially the structure to be developed. So here, the elements that we got to work with is water. I believe this is one of the most attractive materials that any architects can work with. What we have tried these simultaneous explorations from the very beginning, micro-macro approach, where we really start looking into the spaces in design that appeal to our senses. So work with steam, temperature of water, reflections, and shadows, and how it will react with lights. All this was a central theme of coming up and deriving the architecture form. And water, the site suggests such a significant presence. This marks up the important landmarks such as Opera House and theater, and it's historically, it became a key point of a city's development. And Denmark, it has a very deep connections and cultural engagements with the water. So this highlights all this, natural settings, the historic importance, the cultural implications, all this. And yeah, and so we wanted to start up both, again, from the city's viewpoints and the inside out, how we experience the water, what kind of phenomena we can create within the architectural space. Starting with the concept. So this small plot was given to us to design, and this is situated among the master plan that are designed by Kobe, Danish architects. So our facility is situated in a corner, so it's an open end, a very good corner that has surrounded by water. So our aim was to really take full advantage of that. One design, not the constraints, but the guideline that was put forward to come up with this shape is the sloped roof, which is in close link to our surrounding buildings, the traditional Danish architecture. So we got to play with this sloped roof or the walls. What we wanted to have is a bit distinctive presence by having this aggregation and put them together in such point that this facility suggests no front or back. It's all multi-directional and accessible through the all four sides. And yeah, and also we have an opportunity to play a different proportion that matches to the activities underneath. Being surrounded by these two open corners, then the ground floor plane, which is fully open to be able to obtain this panoramic view towards the harbor, exercise for enlarged water surface activity spaces are created on the ground floor. So these two cones are responding to these lengths of the swimming pool, the exercise pool, as well as the shallow pool in front. Wellness, it's at the elevated level on the first floor, where it's more secluded, enclosed, and the views are framed towards this certain direction. And the last is the association cone, where the sports-related or culture-related activities call for residents of the community, people who live in the city and that participate in such activities could be hosted in this. This one is the only one that has some multiple levels, and it's pretty tall. And this is in response to the scale of the adjacent residence buildings. So the profile of the islands and the corner, being at the corner of the sites, the master plan suggests the green courtyard, the court, and that gives a really nice quality to the surrounding commercial and residence building. So we wanted to respond to that corner, as well as to start conceptually this approach of the ripple, that the interior space gets expanded and dissolved into the surface of water. And of the opposite side, and to take in the water into the ground floor activities. Yeah, so as you can see, this building is in particular, there's no direction. It's a multi-direction corner. And so we are to design this harbor bus, which becomes the dissolving edge effect. So by having this terracing, cascading effect, what we wanted to achieve is to have an expansive, one single gesture waterscape in such way that the water of an interior swimming pool, it gets expanded as a reflected pool, and to cascading down to the water of the harbor. This is the other side, in a response to the green codes that makes the connections of the greens, as well as it signals the presence of this cultural house from the all corners of the residence and commercial facilities around. Architectural form that we choose to manipulate is this positive negative operation. So by pushing and pulling the cones, we create this particular sense of scale that matches for the particular effect in each one of the waterscape, the water space. And this works quite positively for achieving the desirable structure as such. Yeah, Mark, you want to take over from here?
Yes, sure. So I will walk you through a bit on the planning and then how the different functions are set within the building. So what we see here is the ground floor. So the ground floor, as Yuki was saying, is all open. Can you see the mouse or no? No, right? Okay.
I have to flip it, I think.
It's fine. It's fine. It's all right. Yeah. So as you can see, so the perimeter, all the perimeter of the ground floor is glass. So it's all open towards the views and gives in the same sense this multi-directionality and really this multiple access feel to the building. And it really relates to the outdoor harbor baths and the views that this corner offer around the harbor. So the way it works is that we have like the dry area on the right here. That's the main foyer that will bring people in multiple access. All these doors will bring you in. And there's one point of entry and everybody goes down to the basement. In the basement, we have the changing room. So you come down dry and you come out from the other side in the wet zone. So a very simple flow, very intuitive. You go down, you change, and you go back up. And you are in this elevated platform where you have this overview through the transparency of the ground floor and you have the view on the harbor baths. And then the ripple effect we were mentioning before starts there. So the play pools cascade down. The play pool cascades down, and then we have the teaching pool, and then we have the main exercise pool. So all this is really to give different activities and different depths of water, different sensation of the water, and different ways of using the water. And what you can see also in the center is the spine, the central stair that we call the valley stair. That's an outdoor stair. And it's another way of getting to all the different functions of the floor of the building from an outdoor. So when you go down to the basement, you have also this option of taking this outdoor stair, and it will really link all the different floors and functions of the building as a spine and central core of the building. This is the view from the basement where you have this valley stair we're mentioning. It's totally outdoor, or you keep going on the right, that will lead you in an internal way. Then you get to the ground floor. Here you are in the foyer, you're in the dry zone, but you have this glass separation between the wet zone and the dry zone. So you're always connected either visually or by the material, or all the senses are always like aware. And you always have, as you see here, this kind of peak views towards the harbors, towards the different directions, and you always have this kind of interlocking spaces. So you can see also when you look up, this is the valley pool, what we call the valley pool. It's this elevated pool on the first floor. So you always have this kind of in and out visual contact. So this here is an axon showing the valley stair I was talking about, and how it's linking like a spine in the center of the building, all the different floors, and you go all around, and you have this elevated pool that you see here. That's the view from the first floor on these stairs, and you can see in front of you the elevated pool. So it's really, you feel in the same way like you are in between these valleys. You create your own interior realm in a way, but right away you turn your around and you have the contact with the opera house, you have the contact with the theater across. So there's always this link between inward and outward looking feel to the projects. That's the view from the other side, where you are in this elevated pool. You get into the slit, you are inside the cone, and the slit at the end is like a city skyline view when you get under this cone. That cone you see in the cross is open on top, so when you are swimming in this pool there, it's if it's raining all the way down. So you always have this different sensorial experiences. So the water is the prime actor in this project, and everything is really around the water element. Then we jump to the first floor, is the wellness area. So on the next page, yeah. So the wellness area here, we look at a totally different feel and experience of the water element. So what you can see here is a more intimate experience, a more sensorial experience. What you have in the ground floor is like open to the public access. When you get to this floor, it's a different access. You need a different ticketing. So it's less crowded in a way, it's more controlled, and you have this more intimate feel to the elements. So you can see how it's all about a play with light and shadows and the different baths. So this shows here the different water experience you can find here. So all these different pools have different depths, different water type, different temperature, and it's always all about how you switch from one sensorial experience to the other. You can see also the materiality of this floor is very different than the ground floor. You get a bit more in the dark tones, like more in the dark stone granite, and then you have also a set of misty hammam, and then you jump back in the top right to a dry sauna connected to an outdoor terrace. So it's really a mix and a different experience from place to place. What you have here, where you have the mouse, is also a hot stone area that would be more for a resting platform. Like after you go around on these different sensorial experiences, there's always like this resting moment that's facing exactly the valley stair. And then this is a view from the top of the association cone, the highest cone. That's the only cone with floor slabs and programmatic floors there. This is all for association clubs that are related to water. And yeah, so here you can see one of these floors where you have a training room, also with always this kind of this terrace that allows this access, the viewing connection with the rest of the building, and it's always inward, outward looking, as you can see. There's always this interplay.
Okay, let me take it from here then. The last
Sure.
portion is the harbor bath and sauna. So the intention is that of course, it's very popular for Danish people to have this harbor sauna. So this sauna is integral elements to the landscaping. So there will be a series of platforms and slopings, and the sauna is tucked sort of underneath that. Excuse me. Sorry. So the sauna is located in this position, how one can walk on the extension of the roof, approaching to the side of the water. And this is accessible to the water of this harbor bus. And there's a series of bleachers and platforms. And by putting it in the lower levels, it could still obtain this very clear panoramic view from the exercise pool inside and to expand out towards the harbor. And this is the effect, a view from a sauna to opera house. And this is the latest model that highlights this intent. Very quickly, because I realize that we are pretty running out of time. Only remain 10 minutes for Ibsen now then. Okay, so we have some typologies that has a skylight as a cut and slit for marking the threshold, so moving from one space to another. There's a screen facade effect also that filters the lights very gently. And all this right now, it's developed with the idea of a brick facade. Yep. So this is the bird's eye view. So you can see it has this marking, in hope that this would signal the presence of the new Papillon master plan residence together with our water culture house. And this creates a new dialogue between the opera house and theater. But as we speak, the Corby has just won the competition to design these beautiful park ideas. So right now it appears vacant, but this will be filled with greens and seasonal changes. It's going to be, quite unique. And we believe that together with this water culture house, it would create this new waterfront scene in the city of Copenhagen. Okay, so Ibsen Library. Yeah, so we again started to looking deeper into this the writings and literature and how we are to tackle and implement the quality of that and make a link between architecture and literature. There's a reoccurring themes. Of course, we started with the silver vein, which is also how we started making this whole architecture as the hub or the network. And this running flow in the architecture planning. At the same time, such recurring themes in Peer Gynt, for instance, these crowns and trees that symbolizes the verticality, unattainable goals, and so on. So that has been considered in the planning aspect, as well as how the architecture would present itself in the city, and to make a new intervention together with the activity around. Mark, you want to talk a bit about this very quickly?
Yeah, so I mean, just to pick up like what you were saying, and also like what we were talking about for Andersen. I mean, obviously the greatest source of inspiration was really jumping from the literature and how this can be translated into architecture, not in a literal sense, but in a way like how this can be reinterpreted. And then Ibsen universe is like so filled with all these different elements. So when we go from the ambiguity, the very high clinch, like the downfalls, all the different characters, how we go to the mountain peaks, the double perspectives, the highs and low, the compression, the cave, the borg. So in a way, we try to extract from this what can be translated into the building. So in a way, trying to see how we can translate this, the falling heights, how we can trade the compression, decompression, how we can trade the horizontality and the cave light. And that's something that we'll see in the development in the next pages.
Yeah, so this is one of the images that highlights the face of the library towards the city side. So you can see it in close relationship to the silhouette of the churches behind. And this particular setting in snow, it gives a warm light leaks through and I'll give a stage-like presence towards the city. So this is one of those projects that really the form has derived from a close analysis of the site, actually, in relationship to the city, in relationship to the surrounding facilities. So the Ibsen House was one of the main focus also in the deriving of the of the form of architecture. So in the first site visit, what we have done is walk around it and see the flow, how one approaches, the visitor approaches from the city sides, from the other ends, and so on. So we have made the traces of this movement. And also that this has a very beautiful trees that makes the park so special, and foreground and background for perfect library settings. So what we have done already, right after the site visit, we went to the cafe and start doodling by how to frame, how the library could take its form by preserving the maximum amount of trees, and to create the firm link, the maximum openness and transparency from the library to out and outside in. So this is the result of the forum in analyzing the flow and circulations and approach in relationship. And also the how we can embrace the nature of the park. From there, we start manipulating the form by lifting this end so that the larger apertures are created and presence are announced towards the city side, and to really lower it down to relate to the scale of the park in the human scale, very low rise. The last is the relationship to the house. So what we have tried is to create a firm connection and the common use, the quite natural flow from in out to one facility to another. So it was like a very a close marriage between these two programs, which together it makes even far more active cultural ground, we believe. This is in aim of expanding the both presence. Yeah. So this another thing that we have done, the big move is that to recreate this topography so that by walking through the park, then one would naturally lead its way to the other side of the city, which currently it's a little bit of a clogged space, the connection, that it's very minimum how one moves from one end to the other through the park. So this creates a new condition, but in a way that this excavation are sort of gaining back the original state of the topography. So we thought it's a good statement, the large aperture to the city and firm connections, as well as, and also this offers an opportunity for creating the theater scene outside. Mark?
Yeah, so in this image here, this actually, I'll walk you through a bit of the planning of the project. So what we have here, as you can see, so again, so the manipulation of the landscape here also informed how the park will go in and through the building and below and above. So all this here is to show how, again, we try to always have a multi-axis building. So the one in the middle here shows the ground floor. I will start with this one. So it's always this dialogue and how to have this non-directional building. It's the same process that we try to find, like we saw also in the previous project. So in a way here, we always have an access from all the different sides of the site and all the different levels. So the site is not totally flat. We have different levels, as you can see here. So we always try to drag the visitors in from any side. So going in, it's literally the silver vein that's guiding the silver vein that will guide the different functions. So you will have this meandering path throughout the projects on all the different floors that will be like the guide of all the different functions. So you go through this silver vein that will be mostly showcasing Ibsen's universe in very different mediums and very different ways and platforms. And through this, you will go to the different functions. If we go back to the planning, yeah, so what we see is the ground floor. So as I was mentioning, you can see how also there's the dialogue with the Ibsen house and how the program spills out in the Ibsen house and really merge in a very intuitive way. So you can see also what I was talking about, like the compression, decompression of the spaces. You can see how there's always this kind of narrow meandering program that always move out to allow for a bigger program, bigger audience, and bigger functions happening there. You can also see how we have this, what we call in Japanese, the engawa, which is this extension terraceway that will have also this transition between the indoor and the outdoor to really relate with the park. You can see here the kids area that spills out also in the park. So there's always this dialogue and this blurred lines between indoor and outdoor in good season.
Yeah, if I could add shortly on this, is that in a principle, the planning strategy is to have an open plan. So this highlights the concept and traces the concept of silver vein, that it's not the linear path, but one finds its own journey, the way, the destinations, or the paths in between. So the activities are spontaneously happening in this open plan and flowing circulation. So this also in the attempt of creating this very good transparency from one park end to the city end, and always these connections from one activities to another. One thing that is worth noting is this close relationship to the theater part, that some programs could be shared with the other common activities. So it's something that we aim to achieve by developing further the planning. So yeah, this is the Engawa experience that Mark was mentioning. It's a typical Japanese way of drawing in the interior or exterior to interior and vice versa, to have an extension reaching out to the exterior part. So this reading area that is more comfortable and open fully to an exterior path. So it's between books and the city, we call it. It's one of the quality space that are surrounded by a fully wood natural elements. Yeah, the upper part is rather also a flexible part where one could imagine having a small meetings or reading zones, studies, but it could relate to some of the studying activities or the office activities and accessible from some of the service area as well. This is looking from the other end, how the transparency could be achieved from outside in, but you could also have a glimpse of this terracing, the excavating, lowering down of the topography towards city zone. Yeah, so this surely shows how the underground reading area, so the library zones are created a bit differently. So despite of this landscape that really erodes and melts into the ground level of the other side of the site. But since this is a little bit of the submerged experience, the lower levels of the library zones are rather cave-like experience. As such, that the cave-like experience is composed by a series of ramps as such that connects the platform in a different level. And these are all surrounded by books. And this creates a bit of a different experience from above ground to underground. And these elevated gardens are visible from a lower end as well. And this also offers an opportunity to create a stage for theater settings and scenography. And this is how the plan would work in more like a topographical arrangements. Again, it's an open floor plane, so there's no solid partitioning and so on. So that's the core of the planning concept. Yes, this is the view seen from the other side. Let me just go very quickly because we realized that we are quite running out of time. So this is in a season where the dark hours are longer, or the nights in the summertime, and that this glass creates this lantern effects, the leaking lights from inside. But this floating plane that deep cantilever creates, it's a very delicate relationship between the natural elements of the park and inside of the architecture. Yeah, this is the edge of welcoming canopy. So this is a natural way of leading visitors into the entrance area of the library. Yes, Mark, you want to take this part in very quickly?
Yes, very quickly. So this is showing the different accesses for logistics and parking. We're trying to keep the car as far away from the building with the minimum access. So what we see here is on the right-hand side, we have on the lower side of the building, we have the disabled parking and then the delivery services here with like very little spots here for like fast drop-off and fast track parking, and then cars go in, goes out. And here on the left, what we have is the main access for the Ibsen house and also the higher level access for the library. That's an interesting part of the building here, where the client requested to have the building as open as possible. So open, it's like open 24/7 basically, with very little areas that will be locked, obviously for security reason. But most of the library will be open to the public 24/7. It's like really considered as a home, as your home, rather than a library. Silver vein, this is really showing how the silver vein is really spread throughout all the different levels of the building, and it's really the spine that's really lead the visitor throughout all this journey. The park activation here, it really shows like all the potentials for like the outdoor activities and also the indoor performance activities. So the main core of the project is not only a library, but it's really also a performance potential in every part of the building. As you can see here, program can spill out. Next slide, the sustainability principles, and then how we tackle all the different aspects in terms also of the sustainability targets. And then the next one is this a bit on the structure here, how it's divided into, so the basement will be a standard concrete basement, and this the roof, basically it's a roof building, right? So the roof will be made of steel trusses that will allow us to have the cantilevers, that will allow us to have also this shape, and to have also minimum fixing elements with columns spread throughout the building. And it will be solidified with like structurally insulated panel made of timber. So it's an hybrid system.
Yeah, so this is the result of all this design process. We hope that this unique form of the building would relate pretty in a firm way to the surrounding environments. And the roof, how we are trying to initiate the design is that to relate to the tradition of a single wood roof. So this really echoing the scale of the library, or even the pages of the book, that this leaves of the trees and this fragmented surface textures would be really beautiful, we believe, to play with, to cover the roof surfaces. And through the subtle openings of the roof, the skylights, will give this a very warm leaking light effect that works like a lantern in a park. So that's the end of our presentation. And I would like to just mention one thing, that we are about to start, or we are hoping to start the collaboration with the library people very soon. And what has been very attractive for us is this intention or dedication for a public space and democratic aspect of the program. First off, the intention of for the library to be open by 24 hours, 24/7, and the access that are given to the residents around freely, and owning the keys and to own part of the storage. It's something very, very new to us for Japanese, or maybe a French context. The sense of security is something that is very controlling the architecture planning. And here, the openness and trust are given, and that becomes a drive for planning aspect as well as the design to create this openness, transparency, and accessibility. This is something very exciting for us, and looking forward to the further developments very soon. So thank you very much for your patience. Apologies for a bit of extra time that we spent on this.
Maybe I will just add one last thing is our collaborators on this project is Mad Architecture from Norway and Bør Happold for engineering.
Yes, with that then, we would like to conclude our presentation now.
Okay, thank you so much. This was
Thank you.
really a nice presentation, and I think everybody's really happy today to watch you and listen to you. So thank you and have a nice evening.
Thank you so
Hope
much
to-
for having
hope to
us.
see you soon. When you come to Skien, you tell us, okay?
Oh, for sure. Yes, very soon, I hope.
I hope
Thank
to.
you very much.
Okay, goodbye.
Good
Thank you.
night. Bye.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye, Mark.
Bye-bye.
Skal jeg si noe mer, eller? Vi kommer til å dele den linken. Vi har jo tatt opptak av det her foredraget, så vi kommer til å legge den ut på Facebook. Og hvis det er noen som vil ha den sendt på mail, så kan de gjerne bare sende en mail til meg. Ellers så har vi neste Zoom-møte er 3. mars. Og da skal vi ha en presentasjon fra Sebastiano Langaretti fra Milano. Han skal prate om sine prosjekter, og som spesielt har jobbet mye med interiør for ja, diverse lek og barn. Så velkommen til det. Takk for i dag. Ha det.
Ha det!